Welcome to We Are Libertarians. I'm your host, Chris Spangle. We Are Libertarians brings you all of the irreverence modern politics deserves. We explain to you what the hell is happening in our world today and how we can fix it by thinking differently. This is a podcast brought to you by the We Are Libertarians Network. Please be sure to rate and review us in iTunes, like us on Facebook, share this episode with friends, and support us through PayPal or Patreon at wearelibertarians.com. We're supported by listeners like you, so $1 per episode by pledging $5 a month helps us grow. We're always taking your questions and comments via email at editor@wearelibertarians, and I am your host, Chris Spangle, and we are live on Facebook Live. Normally, this is where I introduce all of our guests, but I'm here sort of alone. Harry is in the background. Harry's actually shaking the camera. Harry's here helping me. He is the tech guru for We Are Libertarians, and he is setting up many different computers. If you need to mess it up, Harry, it's okay. So Harry's in the background. Greg is on his way, but I figured we might as well get the show started. I have no idea when he's going to show up. Greg's habit of being on time, I swear, it's sketchy. It's sketchy, Harry. Yeah, go ahead and grab that mic and pull that towards you. And let's say hi to Harry. Harry, how are you doing? Good. Well, let's see if we can get you on mic. Go ahead.
Sweet. Am I on mic yet?
You are on mic now, yes.
Sweet. I'm on mic. Yeah, as I'm trying to unscrew this VGA cable, which is completely tight and on this back of this monitor.
Just take the monitor out of here.
So I just take this monitor?
Yes.
Fine.
We're very professional here at We Are Libertarians. It's shot in my house, so this is my apartment, and I don't know if you can't see, but normally if you look at videos, you have my wall of awards here. We got the Snowden poster. If you haven't seen the Snowden movie, check it out. We're installing a monitor over here. We've got some lights up above me. We've got the Constitution and political buttons over here. So we're trying to do more video, although literally no one who is a part of We Are Libertarians should ever be on camera in any way, shape, or form. Especially Greg and I, especially me. I mean, look at me. I'm wearing tie-dye, but it's Rupert. No show in Agnos, yeah. If Chloe were to ever show up to anything, then Chloe would be great to have on camera. You can, yeah, but she's busy hosting other podcasts and writing for other websites, and she is currently at sex rehab, I've heard, so to speak. So we are here previewing the big debate tonight between Mike Pence. The big debate. Are you laughing? It's
reading the chat.
All right. Everybody is making fun of me and my shirt. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to get on the act. So we've got a big, a mild debate tonight. A very vanilla debate taking place for vice president tonight between Republican Mike Pence, the governor of Indiana, and the governor of Virginia, Tim Kaine, who is the running mate of Hillary Clinton. And I don't think a lot of people really know much about either of these two. We know a lot about Mike Pence because he's our governor here. He has been a longtime congressman in Indiana. He's run for political. He's been preparing for this moment literally his entire life. So Mike Pence, just to fill you in a little bit on Mike, he is really relieved that Donald Trump asked him to be his running mate, because there is no way that he could have been reelected governor. He really wouldn't have been. He would have been kicked out of office and defeated by one of the consummate liars in Indiana politics, Democrat John Gregg.
That is true, but the good thing about, with Mike Pence if Greg had an A game, he finally brought it after being destroyed by Mike Pence in 2012.
John Gregg, yes.
Yeah.
Not Greg Lenz.
Yeah, other Greg.
Right, no show Lenz.
Yeah. Because, if you listening to the gubernatorial debate last night, you're it's wow, Greg actually, John Gregg actually sound prepared for once. Unlike, 4 years ago, he did not sound prepared. He basically just got whooped up and down the stage.
Yeah. See, what happened in 2012 is John Gregg is a Democrat who is running again this cycle, and he's now up against Libertarian Rex Bell and John Gregg. Apparently the audio doesn't sound great. Go ahead and unplug the Harry. Get the iRig. Unplug that for me.
All right,
and we'll see if that sounds a little bit better for people. So, anyways, we have a race for governor between, it would have been almost the same exact race except for Rupert, who was running for office. And John Gregg is the former Speaker of the House. Mike Pence was really setting up his presidential run here in 2016. And he was going to serve a term as governor. He was already, in 2013, he had started to put polling into Iowa. He was making trips to New Hampshire. He was making trips to Iowa to speak. And then RFRA happened, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And that basically was keeping the Nazi cake bakers at bay. So it was, now people can't see me, as if I need more light.
It's better.
Yeah, I know. I'm very pasty. So RFRA happened, and here comes Greg Lenz now. Harry's here, yeah. Harry didn't get the door this time, though. So Mike Pence was, and we are live on Facebook, by the way, Greg. So once you get in here, so Mike Pence basically was running for president, and then the Religious Freedom Restoration Act took place, and it didn't go so well for Mike Pence, and it basically ruined his ability to run for president, and he probably wasn't going to win as governor either. He immediately, everybody came back to Indiana from Iowa and New Hampshire and started fixing his reputation. He was starting to hit his stride earlier this year, but Mike Pence has gone from somebody who was facing a big defeat, which would have ended his political career both here in Indiana and nationally, to someone who is now seen as the explainer-in-chief of Donald Trump. He is basically, go ahead and pull that mic up to you. You're on yellow there. Greg Lenz joins us now. Greg, how are you?
Doing well, buddy. How are you?
Oh, I should probably turn you on, but go ahead.
You always turn me on.
Thank you. You're so kind.
You're generous and thorough. But I would say he's become the Trump whisperer.
He has become the Trump whisperer. He is somebody who can speak to social conservatives. He brokered the deal with Ted Cruz. He went to Ted Cruz many weeks ago and made the case for Donald Trump. Mike Pence is a long time. He was number 3 in the House forever. And he got some social conservative cred when he opposed the bailout in 2008. And he kind of led the House revolt against establishment Republicans during that period. And basically said, this is too far. This is not what, many libertarians at that point were even flirting with the specter of liking Mike Pence. But once you learn that this guy helped pass the Patriot Act, he touted it on his website. I got thrown because Aaron said I have very low energy tonight.
What?
If Aaron Ebert were here and saw the chaos that Harry was bringing upon the apartment tonight, he'd be very impressed with my hosting skills. Nobody can keep pace.
No, I mean, it's hard to host a show alone, especially when you're doing video as well.
Oh, yeah. Trying to look good for the ladies.
Not everybody can just be a periscoper alone like Aaron.
Alone in his shower drinking his shower beer.
Is he drinking a shower beer right now?
Oh, he probably is drinking.
I thought he would be doing something fun with his children.
No.
He's such a great father.
So Mike Pence is somebody that has always kind of fooled libertarians. A lot of libertarians have always kind of flirted with Mike Pence. They've always thought that here's a guy who, yeah, he's a social conservative, yeah, he's a neocon, but man, is he good on economics. But the truth is once you really get into his record on the military, when you get into his record on foreign affairs, when you get into his record on, bragging about crafting the Patriot Act, and supporting it all the way through.
It does make him quite the patriot.
He's very patriotic. So I myself am no fan of Mike Pence's political record. I will say this, that Mike Pence is often, because of RFRA, he has a bad rap.
He does, because he had a chance to finally fulfill so many... he was kind of I don't want to say he was the front runner, but he was the checklist guy for the Republican Party and someone that they thought would have national appeal.
He was on the cover of Weekly Standard or the Weekly Review. Or
yeah, he's had
National
every
Review.
opportunity and every benefit, all the prepping, introduced all the right backers, the right network for fundraising. And so there's been a lot of investment in his career and his rise, and he does well in the media because of his background in it.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he
Former talk radio show host.
Yeah, the fact that he took such a hammering on RFRA it felt like sort of a lot of wasted time and effort on a guy they wouldn't be able to rebrand.
Right. Yeah, he was touted by SE Cup in 2014, 2015 as the guy. And see, Mike Pence is one of those people that can unite the establishment right because he spent so long in Washington, D.C. He also is a Tea Party favorite. They love him because he is a genuine... He is the genuine article. He says what he believes, and he believes what he says. He's not a liar. I've met him many different times, and I think that Mike Pence is true to his word, and I think he's a genuinely decent person.
And he's not nearly as extreme as he's cast.
No. And I would say the same with Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine, by all accounts, I've never met him, but he seems to be a genuinely nice person.
He's a Virginia Democrat, like a Jim Webb.
Right. So Mike Pence is a guy who could unite all the different factions, which is so funny that he's with, Donald Trump because he's the guy that tears all the factions apart.
I'm not sure what you're implying.
Yeah, well, he's an asshole.
Tell me what you really think.
Yeah, well,
that's not low energy at all.
No, I am not low energy tonight. You can attest, Greg. I'm very energetic, shall we say? I've been.
You're no Jeb Bush.
No, I have been shot out of a cannon this week.
Yeah.
So I was ready to...
Earlier today, you had given up on basically everyone, and I knew you were a little bit... I was hoping you were going to have an Aunt Donna moment tonight.
It's been that way for a month now, haven't I? I've just been on edge.
I feel like you've been actually in a good mood and extremely motivated and happy.
Yeah.
Until Jeremiah Morrill quit inviting you to things, you seemed really pleasant.
Well, I mean... It just hurts when you think you're best friends with somebody and then they don't invite you to their parties.
He becomes a public official.
I know.
And he forgets all the little guys.
He's literally Ron Swanson. He's head of Parks and Rec in Henry County.
I know.
In Indiana.
It's a disappointment because he's, technically as establishment and pure as it gets, and to watch him fall to the perks of power is quite amazing.
He gets a girlfriend and he just forgets all of his friends.
That's pretty much, isn't that standard operating procedure for every guy of our age?
Yes. I'm not implying anything.
But
so Mike Pence is a guy, he's a uniter. He's also got one of the best Bush impressions I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, he's a funny guy but that's the problem is he never shows the funny charming side.
Yeah.
Once he came back to Indiana and quit doing the Sunday shows and was trying to rebrand himself as the serious, I guess you could say, almost a the distinguished ambassador look, because he does have a presidential look to him, and he's got a command presence that he's just luckily been blessed with.
He's also got a little bit of a meme appearance to him as well.
Yes, he does. He's very memeable, but he really isn't a terrible guy. There are a lot of things about Mike I really like. I love the fact that every morning him and his wife Karen take a walk at 5:30 and they're not allowed to talk about anything political.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool because...
Having had a marriage basically end because of politics, that's huge.
I know, and he does it every single morning and he commits to it and he's never wavered on it, and he's even... I don't know if he's running as a vice presidential nominee is a little different, but he does live his faith.
Yeah.
Granted, I don't think faith should translate into government, but at least he's not Newt Gingrich sitting there accusing Bill Clinton of, no family values while he's having an affair with his sick wife with cancer's oncologist.
Right. He's genuinely the opposite of his running mate in pretty much every way.
Well, I don't think Donald has ever claimed to be a Christian conservative.
Or a decent person.
When asked whether he was a Christian, he basically, what'd he say? He said, "Oh yeah, I've had those crackers and had the wine."
I have read Corinthians 2.
Well, yeah, that's what the young kids call it nowadays on the internet. Pepe is the one who changed it from 2 Corinthians to Corinthians 2.
So yes, expect Mike Pence to. Mike Pence, he has a lot of Bushisms. There is a certain rhythm to his speaking that is very Bush-like.
He's changed it though. Have you noticed?
I haven't. No.
So he used to do this thing where how they tell you to speak in threes.
Mm-hmm.
Let me be clear.
Mm-hmm.
he's adopted that. You'll notice it tonight. He speaks in patterns of threes now rather than these extended patterns where he would wander off and then kind of get lost.
Sure.
So it's a different cadence, and it's the same thing that Barack Obama changed between 2004 to 2008.
You watch that 2004 speech versus now. It's totally different.
Like, he became an orator in those 4 years.
Yeah. So here's a few tips, a few biographical points, courtesy of Wikipedia. After losing 2 bids for U.S. congressional seat in 1988 and 1990, he became a conservative radio and TV talk show host from 94 to 99. Now, the thing about that is that I work in the radio industry here in Indiana. His show generally aired from midnight to 3.
Did it really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was not primetime radio.
You're not telling me he was counter Rush?
No. Pence successfully ran for Congress in 2000 and represented Indiana's 2nd Congressional District and the 6th Congressional District in the House of Representatives from 2001 to 2013, rising to the position of the chairman of the House Republican Conference from 2009 to 11. In 2012, Pence was elected the 50th governor of Indiana. In the midst of a re-election campaign for governor, Pence dropped out in July to serve as the VP for Donald Trump. Pence is a conservative and a supporter of the Tea Party. Pence had a few missteps, like I was talking about RFRA, which is basically essentially what Pence told the supermajority of Republicans in the House and the Senate: we're not going to put gay marriage into the Constitution. And they were very upset by that. And they felt that would be a liability should he run for president in 2016. So,
life, liberty, and the hatred of queers.
Right. And so they thought that they'd do a make good, and they'd do a Religious Liberty Act like what was passed in North Carolina recently. We've talked about this on past episodes if you want to go back and get all the scoop. But it was basically like nobody in the governor's mansion thought that this was going to be a big deal at all. And it basically just allowed an exemption for religious liberty, and so the gay Nazis wouldn't be forced to bake the cake for the
he and Gary are actually on opposing sides on this, which is rather odd.
Yeah.
Our libertarian candidate is not as libertarian on the baking of cakes for homosexuals.
We will get to Gary later. Gary.
That's so Gary.
I'm full triggered. So Pence accepted the nomination to run. I think the thing about Pence is I helped work on a campaign. I didn't manage it, but I was the executive director of the state party and was intimately involved in the Libertarian campaign that was a full-time campaign that ran against Mike Pence. Mike Pence is one of the most disciplined politicians you will ever see in your life. Mike Pence ran for governor and never gave a single policy point. He gave every platitude that a Hollywood writer would write for you if you were running for governor. You know, Hoosiers are the greatest people in the entire nation. We are a strong people. We are, just bullshit like that. And he ended up going on to win the governor's race, I think, by like 60%.
And he was in a perfect position. I mean, he was handed a totally reformed state by Mitch Daniels.
Right.
And that was the other thing that was irritating for the Republican Party was, you can't mess this up.
Yeah.
Like,
and
you're as disciplined as he is and as good of a situation as he inherited. It should have been unimaginable that he would be in the position where he has to go through a brand imaging reconstruction.
He had several missteps. There was the Indiana Pravda, which I didn't think was actually a bad idea. It was basically a state news service that would serve as a website to publish all of the state news releases, but the liberal mainstream media branded it as Indiana Pravda. And that became a major.
Well, we kind of did.
Oh, of course.
We were the first on that because you were fully triggered, and then I made the Pence News Network and named Mike Pence the greatest conservative of all time.
We jumped on it with memes,
and then we made the local best news affiliate. We put his face on every single anchor.
Well, yeah, we did great meme work on that. Well, you did.
We're a team. We are Libertarians meme team.
That's right. And there's also his big claim to fame was a 10% tax cut, which basically gave every Hoosier
$43.
It was like 32, I think.
32.
Yeah, I got 32 back. So 32 big dollars a year. So thank you, Mike Pence. So a lot of what they were running when he was running for re-election for governor, a lot of what he was running on was all the stuff that Mitch Daniels had done for those previous 8 years. His When he left, Sue Eller Spearman dropped out as his lieutenant governor to go take over at the biggest community college in the state, Ivy Tech. And Eric Holcomb came in, and he is now running for governor. Eric Holcomb, the Republican, anytime any Libertarian ever gets crap for running for multiple races here in Indiana, we like to point out that Eric Holcomb has been on the ballot in 3 different races in this year alone. He ran for Senate, dropped out to be lieutenant governor because he was going to lose that. Then he became the gubernatorial candidate, and
hasn't won an election since student body class president in high school.
He was Mitch Daniels' chief of staff. He was Dan Coates, the senator from Indiana, his chief of staff. He was the executive director of the state of Indiana's Republican Party. So he's always been a behind-the-scenes guy. Now he's a candidate.
I got to get a glimpse of that up close. I was in the green room with Rex before the first debate,
right,
and he came in with his staff, and then John Gregg came in with his staff, and then it's Lion Jer and I and Rex. And Eric Holcomb, it was odd to see a politician come into a room, be the preeminent, the favorite, and then instead of having that natural charisma, he went off to the side and started fidgeting with bottles of water. Like, he is not that person that owns the room when he walks in, and he's very tall too, so it's even less. You would think you would just naturally be drawn to him, but John Gregg walks in, who's he kind of waddles and he's a little bit awkward, and he comes in doing his Cracker Barrel shtick, and just playing the part completely, and you're like, man, that is the most stark contrast I've ever seen between a guy who is just not a politician in any way, shape, or form trying to become one, and the lifelong seasoned vet.
Yeah. Both Rex and... I'm fighting with Mittens right now. She's trying to get on the podcast. Everybody wants in on our success. The problem for Eric Holcomb is that he's running against one authentic Hoosier and Rex Bell, and another guy who pretends to be Rex Bell and John Gregg.
John Gregg is like central casting for Rex Bell, since he's acting. Rex is the real thing, and he's like the folksy fake understudy.
Right. So Rex in the debate last night killed it. This is Indiana politics. None of you care about that. Let's talk a little bit.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So any final thoughts on Mike Pence?
Tim Kaine is really going to surprise people.
So let me give a few facts about Tim Kaine, because I think people probably know less. Our audience probably knows less about him because most of our audience is from Indiana. Tim Kaine was born in 1958, and he's an American attorney and politician serving. Mike Pence is also an attorney. He actually went to the same law school and was in the same class as John Gregg.
Really?
Yeah. He is a politician serving as the junior United States Senator from Virginia. I called him the governor earlier. He's the senator now. He was elected to the Senate in 2012. He is the nominee with Hillary Clinton. Born in Minnesota, Kaine grew up in Kansas, graduated from the University of Missouri, and earned a law degree from Harvard. Before entering private practice, became a lecturer of the University of Richmond School of Law. He was first elected to
Confederate capital.
Yeah. He was first elected to public office in 1994 when he won a seat on the Richmond, Virginia City Council. He was then elected the mayor of Richmond in 1998, serving that position until being the lieutenant governor of Virginia in 2001. He was elected as governor of Virginia in 2005, serving from 2006 to 2010. He was the chairman of the Democratic National Committee from 2009 to 2011. Which is probably where many of you saw him when he was on the Sunday circuits back then, supporting the agenda of Barack Obama. And he became Hillary's running mate. He was a former, was it Honduras? Where was he a missionary?
Oh, was he?
He was a missionary in Honduras, and...
then he's going back too.
Right. So he entered Harvard Law School in 1979, interrupting his law studies after his first year to work in Honduras for 9 months from 1980 to 1981, helping Jesuit missionaries run a Catholic school in El Progreso. Ooh, progressive. While running a vocational center that taught carpentry and welding, he also helped increase the school's enrollment by recruiting local villagers. Kaine is fluent in Spanish as a result of his year in Honduras, and I think that more than anything was probably why he was put on the ticket. Not only does he bring experience and he's likable, unlike Hillary Clinton, he also speaks fluent Spanish.
And if they win Virginia, the whole thing's over.
Yeah, so he is a strategic pick. I wondered if he was from the Midwest because he does have kind of that Midwestern
self-deprecating.
Yeah, just a likable guy.
Vanilla. He's like Tim Pawlenty, but a little bit more charismatic.
Right.
But Tim Pawlenty just like is kind of like this shrunken in shell, whereas there's something just like naturally or viscerally likable about Tim Kaine.
Right.
He's just so unassuming and non-threatening that you're like, I saw him. He's great. Yeah, fine.
In all three parties, I don't know about the Green Party, but in all three parties, everybody's going, I wish the vice presidents were running.
Oh, it'd be totally different if Tim Kaine were, although he could have never won that primary process.
No.
I mean, Bernie was the only one that ever had a shot because he had enough, peed off Democrats and real progressives that actually wanted a progressive candidate rather than somebody that's probably, you could make the case to the right of Trump on foreign policy and economic policy in certain areas.
See, I wondered why. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. But yeah,
why she picked him?
No, I don't. I understand. I think it's because Donald Trump is so his numbers are so abysmal with Hispanics.
I don't know why.
He loves tacos.
That makes no sense to me. He did the taco bowl picture. How did that not? I thought that would have been good for like a 10-point bump.
He loves tacos.
I mean, what do they have to lose?
Also, this just in from the Hollywood Reporter: GOP declares early victory in VP debate, and Trump is already live tweeting.
That is awesome. I do love that he speaks directly to his supporters rather than letting me. I mean, he's doing it from his phone.
I don't.
That's amazing as a someone running for president.
There was a study that was done that they looked at the metadata from the tweets, and the tweets that were from a Samsung Galaxy were all like angry and poorly written and exclamation points after the word sad, and those were from Trump, and then all the positive, let's join the rally tomorrow in Richmond, were all from an iPhone. So like they can now deduce who
it's Ivanka and Donald are both controlling it. They have a shared account.
Oh, is it?
No, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would do. She's impressive. Like anyone that sees her comes away saying like, she is really someone we could get behind in the long run.
Right.
She's an impressive individual regardless.
Yeah, totally. I'd like to point out that Harry, as he's setting up our computers, put a Pepe meme with a leftist on the other side of the wall.
Oh, man.
Very nice, Harry.
Hey, at least they weren't sent over via helicopter. They're standing.
Well, yes. I watched Narcos this past weekend. Very good helicopter scenes.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I made some GIFs and put them on our Twitter. They sent some people back. Narcos is a great show if you've not seen it.
You love them gifts.
So the debate starts at 9 o'clock. We're going to talk for about the next 15 minutes, then we're going to go off air, watch the debate. We will be back with a live, we'll talk about the debate afterwards. We'll be on Facebook Live giving you our opinions. Harry will be here maybe.
Giving us the black perspective.
Giving us the black perspective on these two very white candidates. So as far as the debate goes tonight, I think that it's going to be very, very, very boring. As Mark Halperin said on Sunday on Meet the Press, that the only way that this debate will make any news is if Tim Kaine walks out, rolls out a TV, and shows the Mike Pence sex tape. Which I promise does not exist.
No, it does not exist. So that's a spam link if you see that in your email.
Right.
But no, it'll be as vanilla as any in recent history, because if you think about it, you had Joe and Paul Ryan.
Right.
But Joe Biden's always good for a good soundbite or something funny. And then before that, it was Joe and then Sarah Palin, and no one knew who she was.
Do you mind if I call you Joe?
Yeah, and then who was it after Kerry? It was
it was Kerry and Lieberman with Cheney.
With Cheney, I mean, that's as boring as it gets.
Right. Well, no, Lieberman was it Kerry and no, it was
who was John Kerry's vice president?
John Kerry was Lieberman. Kerry Lieberman.
That's right. And then McCain was wanted to pick Lieberman, and the
RNC
wouldn't allow it. Yeah.
Yes.
That would have been interesting. But yeah, Lieberman's a fine guy, but he's very vanilla. So Cheney though is still evil. So there's at least something compelling about that. Outside of Mike Pence is too disciplined to really mess up.
Who's Al Gore's running mate?
It was Gore. Who was Al Gore's running mate?
I'll look it up.
Al Gore.
Al Gore.
Bush Cheney versus Gore. I can't even remember the sign.
I can't either. It was. That
shows you how irrelevant tonight's debate is.
It was Joe Lieberman.
How many times?
Gore Lieberman
was Kerry's Lieberman too?
Yes, absolutely. I know that for sure. Yeah, I'm positive about that.
So Joe Lieberman has been
twice.
Man, 3 times a lady.
Yeah,
he's gone.
So that would have been. How many times can you run for VP?
Unlimited.
So I don't think there will be any fireworks tonight. I mean, the problem is the media just desperately wants blood, and so they are so hell-bent on if ideas are discussed and nobody calls each other as Rex Bell said last night, a poopy head, then the media gets all mad and there's no sound bites, there's no highlights. I think that is really the wrong way to approach this stuff. I get that is, as a journalist, you want the easy headline, you want the easy cut for the 11 o'clock news, but that's not necessarily what we need.
No, and Weld would have been a really interesting addition to this. That's what's really going to be missing.
Yeah.
Because Weld is more authoritative, especially on policy, than Pence.
Right.
And I'd argue he's probably even more in the know and more plugged in on policy, especially foreign policy, than anyone on the debate stage tonight,
including his
Tim
running
Kaine's
mate.
a governor, and so's Pence.
Right.
And Pence was a hawk, and so Kaine is hamstrung because he's having to be more hawkish than he will probably wants to be.
Yeah, so the strategy is that Kaine's going to try and tie Pence to Trump's statements, and that puts Kaine in the position of being an attack dog, which is generally thought that's what the VP position is about, is you're the attack dog while your top of ticket remains stately. But the problem is that's the exact opposite in this election, where Kaine is not well suited to attacking Mike Pence, and Mike Pence does not attack anybody. There's a great article that was in Politico recently, and a few other outlets. I think we've tweeted it out or put it in our newsletter. He is adverse to doing any kind of negative campaigning or even really talking negative about people, because in 1988, when he lost, or I think it might have been the 90 race, he put out some really nasty mailers tying, the opponent to Iran and Iraq and all kinds of crazy stuff.
And it backfired.
It's why he lost. And so he vowed that, he was just like, what, my values, I don't have integrity. And Mike Pence may be wrong on the majority of what he says, but he does do his best to have integrity. And so he never has done any negative campaigning, and he ran against one of the dirtiest campaigners I've ever seen in John Gregg in 2012, and he just stayed above of it. Now, he knew that that's what he had to do. He didn't have to answer questions. He didn't have to do press conferences.
And he has a ton of experience having to defend bad policies.
Yeah.
And so I think he's going to be well prepped for this, because he was the show pony for the Bush administration from 2000 to 2008 on Meet the Press and George Stephanopoulos this week. And he's always done a really good job when he doesn't have to defend himself, but when he's defending others, he's excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Tim Kaine, though, has had the line. Have you seen The Circus yet on Showtime?
I've seen up through the primaries. I haven't seen it recently.
The Tim Kaine selection episode was hilarious because I think it's Halpern said he's sitting there watching him, and they ask him, aren't you kind of a boring pick, for vice president? And he says, you know what, I am. But boring people are the fastest growing demographic in this country. It's so self-deprecating. Yeah. It's almost off-putting that he's so honest about how he is. And there's something very, very endearing about him.
So the first debate had like 100 million people watching it. This will have what, 5? Oh yeah, 10 maybe.
It won't be interesting. But it will be interesting to see though if the questions are so pro the Democratic side.
Yeah, I'm not one to complain about liberal media bias, but it is getting out of control. I mean, they're hitting Gary, they're hitting Trump, they're doing their best to make the case. I mean,
isn't it funny how they're all for us until we're for Gary, who's as libertarian appealing towards the left side as there'll ever be, and yet he has to be destroyed.
Man, as soon as the polling started to show that he was polling more Democratic votes, and then the Aleppo moment happened, and then, man, they have just, going on MSNBC, and then today he was on MSNBC again with Andrea Mitchell, and he said something that the headline is worse than what he said.
Oh, yeah.
He basically said, how can I bomb people if I don't know where they're at?
Yeah, I can't start wars with places if I can't find them on a map.
Right.
Which the only problem is the difference when Gary's self-deprecating and Tim Kaine's self-deprecating. Gary's just weird enough you don't know if he's serious.
Yes.
And like he's just got some quirky mannerisms where you're like, you want to back away, and then that he can't afford to do those anymore. He's got a good sense, he's just got a quirky, odd personality, like sticking the tongue out.
Yeah.
But people that doesn't play well if they're not sure whether you're joking or not.
Yeah, he and Trump have the same problem. They don't have discipline. So what you see in Mike Pence is somebody who is incredibly disciplined. Tim Kaine is disciplined. Hillary Clinton is disciplined. There aren't a lot of gaffes with those people because they're professional politicians. And so the media and people go, oh, see, you libertarians need to run a real professional. You need you libertarians need to run somebody serious. But Gary Johnson's being honest.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's this disconnect with people. But at the same time, you have to be savvy enough to know that if you say something that is a joke, or even if you're just like, it's rambling out of your mouth, and you say something like, how can I bomb places if I don't know where they're at on the map? That's going to be the headline on Raw Story, which then HuffPost, then The Hill, then Politico, then, you remember when we interviewed Ron Paul way back in 2013, and we interviewed Ron Paul, and he basically made news on the podcast by saying that Rand gets a raw deal or something. And so we posted it, and I tweeted it at 3 places: the Daily Caller, Mediaite, and the Blaze. And the Blaze picked it up, Mediaite picked it up, and then we went all over the place. Our audio was ripped off.
I was in South Bend. Joe Ruiz and I were at the Fiddler Inn having dinner, and all of a sudden he's like, "You're not going to believe this." He's like, Mediaite just picked up and cited We Are Libertarians, and we were both thinking, we were in the media class at that point. Little did we realize it's going to take more than one citing by the Ronimal to end up getting interview requests
We
and
are
commentary.
so not part of the media class.
No, we're not. We're a little too irreverent.
Even I know I made one your mom joke last night while I was live tweeting the gubernatorial debate and giving serious political commentary about the governor's debate. Then I see my coworker Jeff Vibert tweet out, "What should I eat for dinner tonight that will cause self-loathing?" And I replied, "Your mom." And Tracy Forner from Wish TV 8 called me out and said, "How can you say that if you're trying to be a serious political figure?" And I said, "Tracy, I'm not trying to be taken seriously by anyone."
I would have said, "Look who is running for president."
Yes.
I am a direct reflection of leadership.
So more thoughts on tonight's debate, Greg?
No, it'll be very vanilla. I don't think there'll be very many soundbite worthy moments. Pence is too used to this, defending someone else, and he's too disciplined. Kaine will. I do think Kaine has an opportunity to kind of become the guy that it's his formal introduction to America, and I think they might really like him because he's a likable individual. And I will say the person who had the worst day in all of politics today was Donald Trump, because Joe Biden, Uncle Joe said he's not a bad man, but his ignorance is so profound. And when Joe Biden is calling you ignorant, you have hit rock bottom.
Do you think that he sits there and just kicks himself? He'd be up by 30 points by now.
Oh, this thing would have been over before it started.
Yeah.
But he never had a chance. Like the Clinton, this is an anointment. This is a coronation, not an election.
Yeah.
Anything, and that's why Gary's getting the treatment he's getting.
Yeah.
He is just enough of a threat for them to worry that Gary has to be tarred and feathered and thrown into the gulag.
He's doing himself no favors, absolutely. But
he's better on every left progressive issue in regard to civil liberties than their nominee, and yet he's the Antichrist because he's not a hawk and doesn't know where Aleppo is or really have a plan for how he'd handle foreign policy.
He can't name a favorite foreign leader. Well, 90% of the foreign leaders are socialists, and the other 10% are dictators. I can't name one either.
Really?
Maybe Netanyahu, because
he's not the one anymore.
He will blow
Perez.
Well, Shimon Peres died.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, saying like Netanyahu isn't a leader you can point to and say you admire for Gary Johnson.
Right.
I mean, he
because
literally has
hawk.
the Iron Dome.
Right.
That's arguably worse than the wall.
Could have just said Trudeau. I look up to Trudeau.
Well, that's what I
Trudeau,
thought.
yeah.
Canada, yeah.
Or he's going to say, Trudeau's great on civil liberties.
That's very clever. I look up to Trudeau.
And,
yes.
and like that's, I was
to
talking
him.
to our national chairman Nick Starbuck because I criticized
Name drop.
Gary because he came after me.
Right.
But that's what happens is I make a comment and then I get descended upon by libertarians like I just said Gary was Hitler, and I'm like no, who, and then they make the mistake of saying who would you ask or who would you say, and I said well I'd say Prime Minister Abe in Japan for his courage to take aggressive monetary policies when their economy is depressed. Putin for his strategic thinking, because evil or not, the man's brilliant in strategy. Brilliant. Because Russia is not anywhere near financially healthy enough to hold the political clout they do, and yet he's just walks circles all over President Obama. And then at the end of the day, Trudeau, because he's so great on civil liberties.
Yeah.
And it's that simple. But that means you have to have read The Economist or The Financial Times at least once a week.
This is the best.
And that isn't too high a bar for a presidential candidate.
At all. I watched Rex Bell last night on the debate stage. Rex has been writing for 15 years. He's been in the Libertarian Party for 16 years. He's run for office multiple times. And I've seen candidates do televised debates who are shaking before they go out there, or even local forums. And but I said, so were you nervous? And he goes, no, not at all. I've done this a million times. And during the debate, they asked about what would you do as governor for Indiana forestry law. None of the three candidates have ever studied forestry law. No candidate knows the ins and outs of forestry law. But Rex had a very cogent argument and was prepared, not because he knew about forestry law, but because he knew about principles. He'd run for office at lower levels. I've learned this at the place that I work that deals with comedy. I see a ton of stand-up comedians and how they do their work. The more a comedian or a writer or somebody who's running for office inputs into their mind, the better the stuff that comes out. And you and I both know this. The more that you and I input and read the news and read books and watch documentaries and talk to people,
I have a general curiosity about the profession they're trying to commentate on.
The better this program is. And I think this show has been really rock solid the last couple months because Single Spangle doesn't have anything to do but sit and read.
And meme.
So I'm like George Costanza. When he stopped having sex, he was like answering every Jeopardy question. So I saw that with Rex, and I was just struck. I was like, if you're going, and I was talking with another person who had run for office before, and I was like, if you're ever going to run again, you've got to do what Rex has done. You've got to sit there and write, and writing's one of the best forms of thinking. You've got to read. You've got to be prepared.
And there's two kinds of ways to do it. You can be the bumper sticker politician and just repeat, but then you have to be the front runner.
Yeah.
Or you have to that should be the litmus test. Do you have an intellectual curiosity for the office you're running for? Do you have a comprehensive knowledge, at least enough to offer an insightful comment on something that is a little bit esoteric or maybe not an everyday thing you deal with in office?
It's why I don't like Donald Trump. Donald Trump, to me, is the poster child for the anti-intellectualism that is the streak in American politics, especially on the right. I've gone to dozens of tea parties where you've got these people who look at being not just, they celebrate not only being misinformed, but also uninformed.
Oh, yeah, intelligence is a threat. They belittle it. Like, hey there, college boy.
Right. And I look at Donald Trump and I go, this is not the best and the brightest that we ought to be holding up. And I think that's been your criticism of Gary Johnson, is that he represents that kind of libertarian shallowness. There's not a lot of depth there.
I knew the problem with me for Gary was I felt this coming in, that it was going to be an election where he was going to have a lot of popularity, and that was why he was without question the right pick to run. But he has to. Libertarians have not had a candidate for president yet that has started from the assumption they're the favorite. They're going to win, and they're going to present a plan to Americans as a whole for day one when they walk in that office.
Right.
And if you it's that old adage, if you failure to prepare is, or
if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail.
Exactly. And that's what's happening, and that breeds, and it just keeps, it's this vicious cycle where we aren't expected to have a plan. We're just expected to be critics.
Yes.
But that was in the past. We're at the point now where we have to start putting our stuff out there to be criticized. Because once you do, you look so much different than Hillary and Donald. Donald doesn't ever talk about a formal plan. He talks in general platitudes. Hillary talks about why Trump's wrong. And there's this gap and just this open vacuum for someone to come in with a compelling plan that's reasonable and people can imagine it happening.
Right.
And we had that opportunity this year and we didn't do it.
That's why people were so impressed with Austin Peterson. Peterson, this guy just talks in memes and bumper stickers. But then if you see him get challenged, there's another layer.
There's substance.
There's substance there. And if again, to go back to comedy, to relate it back to what I think more people are familiar with stand-up comedy, that's the difference between a comedian and your dentist. A dentist will tell you a joke and you'll laugh, but it's a dentist. It's a dad joke.
Right.
A comedian will tell you that joke, but then there will be 3 more hops behind it that will then build on the laugh. And libertarians have to get to a place where you can't just say the thing that everybody else says, which is the frustration. There's got to be some hope with the change.
It's that Teddy Roosevelt speech, the man in the arena, we're beyond just being the criticizers.
Yes.
We can get sound bites that way, but until we start presenting our plan, we'll never be seen as someone that's credible enough to elect and put in office.
Which this has been one of my criticisms of the Ron Paul movement, is that so much of Ron Paul's followers, but Ron Paul himself, it's... you tune in and it's like, wow, I've been saying this for 30 years. If we had just listened to me, it's like, well, people just didn't take you as seriously because you didn't have much of a plan beyond no.
That isn't a plan.
That isn't a plan.
You're not going to ever win an election saying all the things you wouldn't do.
Right.
Because you're an executive. You're a leadership position. Leadership means presenting a plan, having a strategy.
Yeah.
Not just going in and repealing things. That's great. That can be part of the strategy. But if you're going to talk about repeal, you have to talk about why that will actually be better and what the drawdown process looks like. You can't just say, well, I'd pull the American military out of the rest of the world. Well, that's great. Do you even know who to call to begin that?
Right.
What type of authorization is going to have to be done? All the lives you're probably putting into, are probably going to endanger by doing it in such a dramatic, radical way.
Right.
Have you talked about all of a sudden just having a balanced budget amendment in the first year where you have an economic freefall? How are you going to defend yourself in the press?
Yeah. And if you can't,
then you're going to lose the second midterm, and you're going to get crushed in the general, and your libertarians are never going to be win again.
Right. So this is not beat up on Gary Hour because
it's be serious.
It's be serious. It's same for Trump. All right. So we have 15 seconds.
Let's do it.
Final thoughts for the debate here.
I'm excited. Are you?
Not really.
Okay.
I think it's going to be very vanilla. It's not nearly the excitement that we saw the other night. We're not going to do a live commentary. We're just going to watch it because I don't think it's as exciting for people.
The demand's not there.
The demand's not as high. But we will return after the debate. Went full Hillary Clinton right there. We'll return after the debate. We'll be watching CNN. Harry, get the recorder. Thank you for listening to this preview of tonight's debate. We appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you right after the debate.